After a certain age, the loss of energy no longer feels dramatic. It is not collapse. It is not an illness. It is not even obvious exhaustion. It is quieter than that. You wake up and nothing is wrong. Yet something is missing. Your body still functions. Your mind still works. Your life from the outside looks intact. But the current that once carried you through the day now feels thinner, less reliable, harder to summon. You tell yourself this is normal, that this is what happens after 35. That energy belongs to the young, and discipline must replace vitality. This explanation sounds reasonable. It is also incomplete. In the old teachings, energy, qi, was never understood as something that simply runs out. Qi does not vanish because time passes. It disperses when life becomes misaligned. After 35, most people do not lose energy because they are older. They lose energy because they are divided. Your attention is pulled in too many directions. Your body moves while your mind resists. Your responsibilities expand, but your inner rhythm does not adjust to carry them. You are not tired because you do too much. You are tired because too much of what you do is done against yourself. Earlier in life, qi is abundant enough to tolerate waste. You can force your way through days. You can ignore subtle tension. You can override fatigue with momentum. But there is a season when qi stops forgiving misuse. After 35, the body becomes more honest. It no longer hides the cost of misalignment. Sleep no longer restores what the day has scattered. Rest feels shallow. Even motivation begins to feel heavy, as if it requires effort just to want effort. This is not a weakness. It is feedback. In ancient cultivation language, this stage was not called decline. It was called exposure. The habits that once worked now reveal their hidden price. The breath that was once unconscious now mirrors internal strain. The nervous system no longer resets automatically. And so energy leaks, not dramatically, but steadily, through shallow breathing that never reaches the lower abdomen, through constant self-correction and internal commentary, through doing what must be done while quietly resisting that it must be done. Most modern advice responds to this moment with pressure. More exercise, stronger routines, better discipline, optimized habits. But pressure is what created the leak. When energy is low, force becomes expensive. The old masters observed something simple. When qi is abundant, effort feels light. When qi is scattered, even a small effort feels heavy. So they did not begin by asking, how do we gain more energy? They asked, where is it being lost? This is the diagnosis most people never receive. You are not lazy, you are not broken, you are not failing to try hard enough. Your system is spending more than it earns because it is no longer aligned. After 35, the margin for waste narrows. The body asks for honesty. The breath asks for depth. Life asks to be lived in fewer directions at once. This moment feels uncomfortable because it removes illusions, but it is also precise. It tells you exactly where change must happen, not through addition, not through intensity, but through return. Before any method, before any breathing, before any refinement, there must be recognition. Energy has not left you. It has been leaking quietly, faithfully, according to how you have been living. And leaks can be sealed, but not with force, not with urgency, and not with the same patterns that caused them. This is where the path truly begins, not with technique, but with alignment. There is an old story, rarely written, passed from teacher to student only after many seasons. A young disciple once climbed a mountain seeking strength. He had trained his body. He had disciplined his mind. Yet his energy faded faster each year. At the summit lived an old cultivator who was known for long life and quiet vitality. The disciple bowed and asked for the method to regain his qi. The old man did not answer. Instead, he handed the disciple a bucket with a small crack at the bottom and told him to fetch water from the spring below. The disciple returned, breathless, frustrated. The bucket was never full. Again and again he tried. Each time, more force, Each time, more urgency. Finally, angry and exhausted, he demanded the method. Only then did the old man speak. "This spring is endless," he said, "but you are carrying it with a broken vessel." The disciple asked where the crack was. The old man pointed, not to the bucket, but to the disciple's chest. In the old traditions, certain breathing methods were not hidden because they were powerful. They were withheld because they were misunderstood. Breathing was never just about air. It was about intent, tension, and internal honesty. When taught to those still forcing their lives forward, these methods did not restore energy. They amplified the imbalance. People tried to pull qi upward. They tried to generate vitality. They tried to control what was never meant to be controlled. And so the teachings were called forbidden, not because they were dangerous in themselves, but because they exposed what people refused to release. The breath follows the deepest habit of the mind. If the mind strains, the breath strains. If the mind grasps, the breath becomes shallow. If the mind resists life, the breath fractures. To teach a deep qi breathing method to someone who still lives by force is like pouring water into a cracked vessel faster. The leak widens. This is why the elders waited. They watched, not for intelligence, but for readiness, not for enthusiasm, but for stillness. Only when a person stopped demanding more from life did life begin to return energy. In the modern world, the word forbidden sounds dramatic, but in cultivation language, it simply meant unsuitable. Unsuitable for those chasing results, unsuitable for those seeking advantages, unsuitable for those who equate effort with worth. After 35, many unknowingly reach the threshold where this teaching becomes relevant. You have tried forcing long enough to see its limits. You have added routines, discipline, and control, and still feel drained. You are no longer seeking power. You are seeking restoration. This is the quiet qualification. The method itself is not aggressive. It does not push qi. It does not demand performance. It does the opposite. It reveals where you are still gripping life, where breath is held without awareness, where energy is spent resisting what already is. The mountain parable was never about secrecy. It was about timing. When a person is still trying to conquer themselves, the method remains forbidden. When a person is ready to return, the door is already open. The old masters understood something simple and difficult. Energy does not respond to ambition. It responds to the surrender of excess. And so the teaching waits, not on the mountain, but in the moment you stop forcing the climb. There is a single law beneath all genuine cultivation. It is simple, it is inconvenient, and it is often ignored. Qi is not lost through age. Qi is lost through force. Force does not always look aggressive. Most of the time it appears as discipline, responsibility, and endurance. You force yourself to wake. You force yourself to focus. You force yourself to continue when the body signals a pause. At first, this seems virtuous. Society praises it. Your younger self survived on it. But force has a cost that is not immediate. In the old language, force was called contrary movement, action taken against the natural current of the body and mind. Alignment, by contrast, was action taken with the current. When action and internal state agree, qi circulates. When they disagree, qi leaks. This is why two people can live identical lives, yet one feels steady and the other depleted. The difference is not workload, it is internal resistance. Most people misunderstand alignment. They think it means ease, comfort, or doing less. It does not. Alignment often requires discipline, but a different kind. Not discipline imposed from above, but discipline that emerges from knowing what no longer fits. When you speak words you do not believe, qi disperses. When you hold emotions you will not acknowledge, qi stagnates. When you maintain identities you have outgrown, qi fractures. These leaks are invisible, but cumulative. The body keeps score. After 35, it begins to show the accounting. Breath becomes shallow without reason. The chest tightens during ordinary tasks. Rest does not settle the nervous system. This is not because you are doing too much. It is because too much of what you do is done out of alignment. In Taoist cultivation, effort was never eliminated. It was refined. The question was never, how hard should I try? The question was, what am I resisting while I try? Force is effort layered on resistance. Alignment is effort without resistance. The same action, performed in alignment, costs less qi. Performed in resistance, it drains. This is why adding more discipline often worsens fatigue. You are increasing effort without removing resistance. Breathing reflects this law perfectly. A forced breath looks full but feels tense. An aligned breath looks subtle but feels complete. Qi follows relaxation, not expansion. It settles where there is space. This is why the old masters began by removing tension from the breath before attempting to deepen it. They understood. If the breath is corrected before the life is aligned, the breath becomes another form of force. And force, even when subtle, still leaks energy. Alignment begins with honesty. Honesty about what you are enduring unnecessarily. Honesty about the roles you maintain out of habit. Honesty about the inner contractions you call normal. This honesty is uncomfortable. It removes excuses, but it also removes waste. When alignment increases, energy returns without being summoned. You do not feel energized, you feel unburdened. This is the core law behind the breathing method you will later encounter. It does not give you energy, it stops you from losing it, and that difference changes everything. There is a moment in adulthood when discipline changes its texture. Earlier in life, discipline feels sharp. It cuts through indecision. It creates momentum. Later, it feels dense, heavy, as if each act of self-control requires negotiation. This shift confuses many capable people. You tell yourself you are becoming soft, that your will is weakening, that something in you has gone dull, but the body is not becoming weak. It is becoming precise. In the old understanding, the body was not separate from the mind. It was the ledger where all inner agreements and disagreements were recorded. After years of pushing forward, through work, expectation, and self-management, the modern adult body begins to register the cost. The shoulders rise without reason. The jaw tightens during thought. The breath stays high in the chest, even at rest. None of this is dramatic enough to call illness, yet together they form a constant drain. Discipline begins to feel heavy because it is being carried by tension rather than alignment. In earlier years, energy compensated for misalignment. After 35, it no longer does. The body asks a quieter question now. Is this necessary? Modern life rarely allows that question to be answered honestly. You live by schedules designed without regard for inner rhythm. You switch attention dozens of times an hour. You maintain readiness without resolution. This state was unknown to the old cultivators, but its effect was understood. They called it scattered intent. When intent scatters, qi fragments. When qi fragments, discipline becomes strained. You are not resisting discipline itself. You are resisting the way it is being applied. Most modern discipline is corrective. It assumes something is wrong with you. Do this to fix yourself. Push through this to become better. Override this feeling to stay productive. The body hears this as opposition. In cultivation, discipline was not corrective. It was harmonizing. It did not fight the body into shape. It taught the body how to settle into its own strength. This difference matters after 35. The nervous system has already adapted to years of pressure. It does not respond well to more commands. It responds to permission. Permission to slow without quitting. Permission to breathe without optimizing. Permission to move without performing. This is why so many adults feel relief when they stop trying to improve themselves. For the first time, qi stops leaking through self-opposition. The tragedy is that many mistake this relief for stagnation and rush back into force. They believe discipline must hurt to work. But the old masters observed something else. True discipline feels quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not require constant reinforcement. It becomes invisible because it aligns with what is already true. When discipline is aligned, it stops consuming energy and begins conserving it. This is why breathing becomes central at this stage. Breath is where discipline and permission meet. A breath that is controlled drains qi. A breath that is guided by awareness restores it. Most adults breathe as if they are always preparing for something, preparing to speak, preparing to respond, preparing to endure. This constant preparation keeps the nervous system half engaged, never settling. Energy drains not through action, but through readiness. After 35, the body asks for completion instead of readiness. Breathing that allows the body to finish each moment, fully, quietly, becomes restorative. Not because it is special, but because it removes the constant signal of threat. This is why the method ahead does not feel like discipline at first. It feels like letting go. And for those who have lived by control, letting go feels dangerous. But it is not a danger the body senses. It is an unfamiliar alignment. Most people who arrive at this stage carry a quiet inventory of failed attempts. Meditation that lasted weeks, then faded. Exercise routines that worked, then collapsed. Breathing practices were abandoned because they did nothing. Plans to eat better, sleep better, or simply slow down, all eventually abandoned. Each failure leaves a subtle mark, not just disappointment, but doubt. You begin to believe there is something inconsistent about you, that you cannot sustain change, that discipline slips through your hands no matter how sincerely you try. In the language of cultivation, this was never called failure. It was called misapplication. The old masters were precise about this. A method that is correct at the wrong time produces the same result as a wrong method. Most modern practices are introduced without regard for season, age, or internal state. They assume a neutral body. They assume available energy. They assume that will alone can compel the system to follow. After 35, these assumptions no longer hold. Your system is no longer empty space, waiting to be shaped. It is layered with habits, tensions, compensations, and identities. When a practice asks you to add effort without first removing resistance, relapse is not a surprise. It is inevitable. The body does not rebel. It protects itself. This is why so many practices feel good at first. In the beginning, novelty supplies momentum. Attention sharpens. Qi temporarily gathers. The body whispers agreement. But once novelty fades, the true cost appears. If the practice requires you to override fatigue, correct your breath aggressively, or maintain posture through tension, qi is spent faster than it is restored. The body records this. Next time you try, it remembers. This is not a weakness. It is intelligence. The body is alert, assessing where alignment exists and where it does not. Relapse is not a betrayal of discipline. It is the body refusing to participate in another unequal exchange. In the old texts, returning again and again to the beginning was expected. Cultivation was not linear, it was circular. You attempt, you drift, you return. Each return was not a reset, it was a refinement. What changed was not the person's will, but their understanding of where force was still hiding. Most people relapse because they mistake effort for sincerity. They believe trying harder means caring more. But sincerity in cultivation meant something else. It meant listening accurately, listening to the breath when it tightens, listening to the body when it resists posture, listening to the mind when it grows impatient, listening to the subtle impulses that signal tension, misalignment, or hidden resistance. These signals were not obstacles to overcome. They were instructions. When ignored, relapse followed. Quietly, imperceptibly, the system withdrew consent. Shame often compounds this. Shame convinces you that failure is personal, that inconsistency is a flaw, that you are weak, but inconsistency is often the system attempting to restore balance. The body will always choose survival over improvement. If a practice threatens balance, it will be abandoned. Understanding this removes self-judgment. You did not fail because you lacked discipline. You failed because discipline was applied without alignment. The breathing method you are approaching does not demand consistency in the beginning. It demands honesty. Honesty about where effort turns into strain. Honesty about where stillness feels uncomfortable. Honesty about the impulse to rush results. Honesty about the subtle resistance hidden behind good intentions. This honesty is what transforms relapse into refinement. Each return becomes gentler. Each attempt becomes quieter. Each failure teaches where force still lives. Eventually, something changes. The practice no longer feels like a decision. It feels like relief. And when relief appears, consistency follows naturally. Not because you promised yourself, but because the body finally agrees. Before any instruction, before any posture or counted inhalation, the first lesson is this: breathing is not about doing more. It is about returning. Most people think they breathe. They move air in and out. But in truth, they rarely arrive in their own bodies. The modern breath is shallow, quick, and distracted. It carries tension from the mind into the body. It mirrors the scattered intent of life. The ancient masters observed that energy is rarely missing. It is misplaced. It is trapped in the chest, in the shoulders, in the nervous system itself. It does not vanish. It stagnates. This is why effort alone cannot restore vitality. Pulling harder, forcing deeper breaths, or imposing will on the body only tightens what is already constricted. The first principle of this forbidden qi method is therefore removal, not addition. You do not inhale to accumulate. You exhale to release. You do not control the breath to gain energy. You guide it to return to its natural path. The second principle is stillness within motion. Movement is not abandoned, but urgency is removed. The breath does not rush to fulfill an objective. It does not compete with time or expectation. It flows with intention that is calm, aware, and unhurried. In the old texts, this was described as reversing the force. All prior exertion, tension, and scattered qi are acknowledged, not resisted. Then, gently, they are guided back to the center. This method does not require stamina. It does not require flexibility. It does not reward strength of will. It rewards honesty. Where the body resists, the breath pauses. Where the mind clenches, the breath softens. Where life has been ignored, the breath notices. The third principle is return before expansion. Too many practices begin by trying to deepen or expand. They tell you to fill your lungs, raise your ribs, and stretch your abdomen. The ancient masters refused this approach. First, they asked the practitioner to return what had leaked, to reclaim qi lost through tension, resistance, and scattered attention. Only then could the body carry vitality effortlessly. This approach is subtle. It may feel like doing nothing. It is quiet enough that the modern mind doubts it, but it is deliberate, precise, and transformative. Even before the first technique is demonstrated, these principles reshape how the body perceives breath. The breath is not a tool, it is a guide. Energy is not created, it is retrieved. Effort is not virtue, alignment is. For those over 35, this is a crucial distinction. You have spent decades relying on effort. You have pulled yourself forward through fatigue, schedules, and self-discipline. You have asked the body to give more than it could sustain. Now the body asks a different question. Will you meet me where I am? This is the threshold. Most modern adults never cross it. They seek results immediately. They want technique without listening. They want energy without awareness. The forbidden method waits for those willing to pause, to simply notice where tension resides, to follow the subtle paths where qi has accumulated or stagnated, to allow the body to reclaim itself quietly, without drama, without demand. Breathing becomes a conversation. It speaks of hidden contractions, old habits, and unacknowledged strain. It does not scold. It does not urge. It only reflects. Only then does the first technique become meaningful. Until then, the breath is a mirror. It reflects the misalignment of life. It does not fix. It shows. And seeing is the first step toward returning. Only when the body can see itself clearly can it begin to reclaim the energy it has been holding all along. In the human body, nothing exists in isolation. The heart, lungs, and nervous system are not separate from the mind. The mind is not separate from the breath. The breath is not separate from the qi flowing through the body. When one is misaligned, all are affected. When one returns to rhythm, all follow. After 35, this interconnectedness becomes unmistakable. The nervous system, once resilient enough to endure scattered attention, begins to reflect internal tension. The mind, once able to multitask endlessly, signals fatigue sooner. The body, once forgiving, now insists on clarity. This is why alignment matters more than willpower. Will can push for hours or even years, but rhythm restores effortlessly. The breathing method you are approaching works by gently teaching the body, mind, and nervous system to synchronize once again. It does not impose order, it invites it. It does not create force, it removes obstruction. It does not demand attention, it refines awareness. The breath acts as a metronome, subtle and precise. Each exhalation releases tension from the shoulders, the chest, and the abdomen. Each inhalation draws awareness inward, reconnecting scattered energy to the central axis of the body. The nervous system, trained to react constantly, learns to respond less and settle more. The mind, trained to plan incessantly, learns to observe without judgment. In this rhythm, the body begins to remember what it once knew. Muscles release habitual contraction. Organs resume natural cycles of rest and renewal. The nervous system reduces unnecessary firing. Energy no longer leaks at every interruption. This return to rhythm is subtle, often unnoticed at first. The practitioner may feel lighter, calmer, more stable, but not dramatically changed. This is the point. Transformation is quiet, measured, and accumulates slowly. In Taoist cultivation, this state was described as returning to the Tao within, not by adding strength, but by removing obstruction, not by forcing control, but by allowing the natural flow. The body, mind, and nervous system move together as one, like water in a calm river, adjusting to the contours of the valley. The key is patience. The nervous system cannot be hurried. The mind cannot be coerced. The body cannot be forced. Alignment occurs when you stop resisting the subtle signals of your system. When you notice tension, you soften. When you notice racing thoughts, you pause. When you notice shallow breath, you return it to its natural rhythm. Over time, the three, body, mind, and nervous system, begin to pulse as one. This is not perfection, it is presence. It is the moment when scattered qi gathers effortlessly. It is the invisible current that sustains life without conscious effort. Through this unified rhythm, the energy that seemed lost after 35 begins to return naturally. The practitioner is no longer struggling to maintain discipline. The nervous system no longer leaks energy unnecessarily. The mind no longer battles itself. It is a return to simplicity, to coherence, to alignment. It is the quiet power of energy restored, not through exertion, but through harmony. After 35, most people approach life as if they need to acquire more sleep, more exercise, more discipline, more willpower. They search for a supplement, a technique, a shortcut to reclaim what feels lost. But the ancient masters observed something different. Energy is rarely absent, it is leaking. The problem is not insufficiency. The problem is misdirection. The body, mind, and qi are given to the wrong places. The breath is scattered, the attention is fragmented, the effort is applied against, not with, the current of life. Identity, in cultivation, is not created, it is refined. You do not become someone new, you return to the version of yourself unburdened by force. This is the work at this stage. Not more discipline, not more striving, not more effort. The work is sealing the leaks. When you stop fighting against your own body, energy stops disappearing. When you stop resisting your mind, focus begins to accumulate naturally. When you stop layering tension over tension, vitality returns quietly. Identity refinement is subtle. It is a long, patient pruning of what no longer serves you. It is saying no to commitments you never wanted. It is noticing where you tighten unnecessarily and letting go. It is recognizing the stories you tell yourself about who you should be and choosing to stop feeding them. This is why many adults feel drained. They maintain identities formed in the first half of life, roles, expectations, habits that no longer align with who they are now. The energy spent maintaining these illusions is invisible but immense. The forbidden chi method does not ask you to add anything. It asks you to observe, release, and refine, to align the breath, the body, and the mind with the true demands of life, to meet your current self rather than the self you once were, or the self you think you should be. Refinement is quiet. It does not make a show of virtue. It does not seek approval. It does not demand achievement. Yet, in its quiet, it restores power. The power that always belonged to you. The power to move without waste, to act without tension, to live without constant depletion. Energy does not come from more. It comes from less misalignment, less resistance, less unnecessary effort. By sealing the leaks, the practitioner no longer chases energy. Energy is naturally present. The body no longer signals a deficit. The mind no longer battles fatigue. The nervous system returns to rhythm. This is the turning point. This is the identity that sustains the rest of the practice. You are no longer someone trying to reclaim energy. You are someone who no longer loses it unnecessarily. The difference is invisible, yet unmistakable. It is calm, it is steady, it is enduring. After 35, time becomes visible in ways it never was before. Not in calendars or deadlines, not in the ticking of a clock, but in the body, in the nervous system, in the quiet fatigue that signals years of misalignment. Many arrive here carrying regret, small regrets, moments ignored, habits abandoned, words left unsaid, large regrets, paths not taken, choices that felt necessary but now feel misaligned. This is not a place for shame. Shame only leaks energy further. Regret, when held without judgment, becomes a teacher. The old masters spoke of returning to essence. They observed that the measure of a life is not in accumulation, but in alignment, in the quiet coherence of body, mind, and chi. In the moments when effort no longer fights resistance, you cannot reclaim lost time, you cannot undo the habits of decades, but you can stop leaking energy now. You can reclaim what remains. You can refine identity, close the cracks, and allow chi to flow once again. The forbidden chi method does not promise youth. It does not promise stamina beyond what is natural. It promises presence. It promises a return. It promises the ability to live fully in the current moment with the energy that is available, rather than squandering it in resistance. In practical terms, the path is quiet. Notice where tension resides. Allow the body to soften. Observe the breath without forcing it. Release the unnecessary effort. Return to rhythm. In doing so, you honor the years that have passed. Without being trapped by them, you meet your body as it is, not as it once was. You meet your mind as it is, not as you wish it to be. Legacy is not built on feats of strength. It is built in the ability to sustain yourself over decades, to move through life with clarity rather than distraction, to act without exhausting the energy that allows you to act at all. The path is not dramatic. It does not demand heroism. It does not require the sacrifice of self in the name of ambition. It demands awareness. It demands patience. It demands a return. Energy is restored, not in bursts, but in the quiet accumulation of alignment. in moments when you allow the nervous system to settle, when the breath is deep without force, when the mind stops scattering attention to every imaginary demand. This is where strength is born, not in resistance, not in achievement, not in striving, but in stillness within action, in discipline as identity rather than duty, in life lived without leaks. At 35 and beyond, every day becomes precious, not because it is fleeting, but because it reveals the cumulative cost of all previous misalignment. You cannot recover the past, but you can stop wasting the present. You can stop forcing energy into drains of resistance and misalignment. You can choose coherence over chaos, rhythm over friction, return over pursuit. And in this choice, life becomes both longer and shorter at once. Longer in the sense of vitality preserved. Shorter in the sense that nothing unnecessary can be carried forward. The forbidden chi method is not a technique. It is a way of being, a quiet agreement between body, mind, and breath, a return to essence. When practiced consistently, it does not transform life superficially. It transforms it fundamentally. Energy ceases to leak. Discipline is no longer exhausting. The mind is present. The body flows. You are not the person you were at 25. You are not even the person you were at 35. You are someone who no longer wastes life in resistance. Someone who no longer drains the energy that was always yours. Someone who moves quietly, fully, and deliberately through time. This is the path forward, not through addition, not through force, not through striving, through return, through refinement, through alignment. The journey is solitary, but not lonely. It is inevitable, but not desperate. It is calm, resolute, and enduring. You are no longer chasing energy. You are already whole enough to receive it.